Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We'll start in about 30 seconds here, right at 9 Mountain Time. Thank you all for coming. All right, Sonia, Jason, I think we're good to get started. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to the audience. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to VistaVu and our partner SimpleFi's co-hosted webinar, Advanced Data Analytics and AI, part of our Analytics Week here, and this one is the grand finale, so we saved the best for last, maybe. Throughout the week, you've heard from our experts respective to each SAP ERP system and native reporting features. So today, we'll focus on practical analytics and AI strategies for SAP customers, regardless of whether you're on SAP Business One, ByDesign, ECC, or S4, and regardless of where you are in your ERP roadmap or transformation journey. Our goal today, our objective is not theory, it's to show you, through a live demo, that's the focus of our webinar here today, how customers are using SAP native analytics and AI to bring better insight and get better decisions right now. Little slide trouble. There we go. My name's Nick Buttorff. For those of you who haven't met me or I haven't spoken to you, and I'm a strategic account executive here at VistaVu, and I'll be moderating today's session. I'm joined by Jason Reed. Jason, if you want to do a quick introduction.
Yes, good morning, Jason Reed. I'm the Senior Director for Customer Success at SimpleFi and a long-time person in terms of being engaged in the whole budgeting, forecasting, consolidations, and I work with SAP for a lot of years, so very familiar with both the business planning and consolidations, as well as the integration to S4 and all the different data sources that we need. So pleasure to be here.
Very good. Thank you, Jason. So here's how we'll spend our time today together. We'll start with a brief big picture discussion on why analytics is a suitable first move customers make before or even independent of an ERP transformation. Jason and I will run through a few slides establishing key context setting and explaining some product information and value themes if you're not aware of the analytics and data products. We'll spend most of the session in a live demo that Jason will leave, showing AI-driven insights in SAP Analytics Cloud across finance, operations, and executive use cases. We've set this up intentionally as a demo first session, really cool, exciting product, and many use cases, exciting things you can do with it. And we'll leave about 10 minutes for next steps and Q&A, but feel free throughout the webinar to put your questions in the chat, and we'll be sure to get to those at the end. So I want to take a moment to thank Jason and the SimpleFi team for their partnership with us. VistaVu works closely with SimpleFi to help SAP customers move beyond disparate data integration and static reporting into tightly integrated data across systems with scalable analytics and planning grounded in real business pain points and questions. Jason, did you want to introduce SimpleFi for a minute here?
Yes, I mean, we are a gold partner, an SAP gold partner, and our focus really is implementation and services related to business consolidations and planning. And that often means integration to other source systems like S4 and so on. But we are very focused on SAP Analytics Cloud and a subsequent platform called BDC and Datasphere that I'll speak to in a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So in terms of big picture, right, I've consulted with Tier 1 SAP systems over the last 15 years in a sales role from implementation to support, and across all ERP systems, we see the same similar underlying challenges. When reporting, planning, and analysis live in isolated tools, organizations rely heavily on spreadsheets, manual recon, and workarounds just to answer basic questions. So it might ring a bell with you all. For Business One and ByDesign, this usually shows up as Excel. For ECC, It's often business warehouse extracts or custom reporting logic. And even with S4, embedded reporting often stops short of planning, forecasting, and cross-functional analysis. With integrated enterprise performance management, kind of all-encompassing of, a truly integrated data and analytics organization, you're connecting actuals, plans, and operational data so teams can trust the numbers and spend less time preparing reports and more time on value-added decisions. Brings us to a common question we hear: where do we get started? What we see consistently across customers is that analytics is often the lowest risk, highest value entry point. Traditional ERP investments tend to have longer lead times, heavier change management, and delayed ROI. A data and analytics first approach, by contrast, has minimal impact on transactional systems, delivers faster time to insight, and can be adopted by the business users without disrupting operations. Importantly, this is not throwaway work. Analytics investments today carry forward into S4 and beyond in terms of your greater technology systems roadmap. So with that foundation, I'll hand things over to Jason to show how this comes to life in the SAP products and subsequently in the demo. Jason,
Great,
I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Nick. So everything we're going to see today, and most of it is going to be the demonstration. I hope everybody is, settled in for, the next 6 hours. No, I'm just kidding. It is going to be just within the hour. Now, within that hour, I'm going to be showing you a lot of screens, a lot of, live demo capabilities. We're certainly not in that time frame going to be able to get into a lot of detail. We're just going to give you a glimpse today. And, certainly afterwards, we would love the opportunity, reach out to Nick and Sonia from VistaVu. And if you'd like to do a deeper dive, if you'd like to ask more questions, if you'd like to see something in action, we'd be happy to do that. So please keep that in mind. Most of what we're going to cover today is SAP Analytics Cloud. SAP Analytics Cloud is a software as a service solution. It's been around now for a lot of years, but it was built to be a cloud solution. It wasn't a solution that we took and then put into the cloud. We built it around the capabilities and functionality that are there to help drive a cloud-based implementation. Everything we see that we're going to see today is SAP Analytics Cloud, and it really covers a lot of ground. It's a whole business intelligence solution, and we've got customers that are focused on using SAP Analytics Cloud purely for analytics, for business intelligence. We have customers who are using SAP Analytics Cloud completely from a planning perspective. It is their core corporate planning solution. So they are, they're creating yearly budgets, they're creating forecasts, they're updating forecasts, they're using input forms, and then cost centers are entering in their data, and they're being consolidated at a corporate level to create a budget. All of these things are supported from a SAP Analytics Cloud planning perspective. We also have a full-blown consolidations content built on top of SAP Analytics Cloud. For those of you who may be out there that are former BPC or using BPC, everything that you were doing with BPC from a consolidations perspective, you can do with SAP Analytics Cloud from a consolidations perspective, plus more, because we're dealing with new AI capabilities, new functionality that wasn't there, with when BPC was first implemented. So again, we're going to be covering a lot of ground here, but we're going to go at a certainly high level, but looking forward to taking you through some details. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I'll say up front is that I'm talking about SAP Analytics Cloud, but SAP Analytics Cloud is really part of what SAP refers to as the Business Data Cloud, or BDC. One of the things that we find as we do implementations with customers is that a lot of the times the planning challenges that are represented are also data management challenges. So it's not just, how do I address my budgeting process? How do I get cost centers to do data entry? But it's also, how do I get data from different sources? How do I get data from Business ByDesign? How do I get data from S4? How do I get data from other sources? And BDC acts as that data platform, and that, with Datasphere as a data warehousing capability, with SAC as the planning consolidations tool, it really, helps address that entire end to end. So all the way from S4 with your VistaVu partner through to SAC, through Datasphere from an SAP product solution. Next slide, please. So again, I'm not going to get into a lot of details. I will say that from a content perspective, SimpleFi has built out an entire platform of capabilities that really address the entire, EPM, or enterprise performance management sort of group of needs and requirements and capabilities. So that whole framework, really, Business Data Cloud pulls together that whole framework from a data management perspective to sort of, bring all of that together. So again, I'll speak to it in a little more detail if we need to, but next slide. Now, one thing I wanted to address up front is that we could spend a lot of time on AI. I have actually spent workshops working with customers through their AI requirements and how they can address some of these requirements using some of these, things that I'm representing on the screen. I'm not. It's hard to talk about AI sometimes without talking about functional capabilities. But let me say this. The AI that is built into SAC and into BDC and Datasphere and S4 are really embedded in the entire workflow process, the entire end-to-end business workflow from an EPM perspective. So whether you're using Just Ask as a natural query language to say, show me, create a graph that shows me the revenue in this particular quarter by product, or whether you're using Compass as a risk agent to go ahead and analyze your financial risk across particular situations that could or potentially happen. All of these are embedded. It's not like there's one giant AI thing that sits on top of something. These are all embedded, and they work independently of each other, but also together to allow you to drive and ask those questions like, why did my revenue drop in this particular quarter? How do I go ahead and do something? So it's a transactional, it's a visual, it's a user interface functionality. I'm not going to get into a lot of details. I'll show you some of them as we go through it, but very powerful AI platform to drive and answer those questions that you need to help understand. Next slide, Nick. Okay, great. System demo. I think I might be even a little bit ahead of time here. So I said to Nick, I like to talk sometimes, so he's going to have to keep a firm hold on the timer for me. But any questions, please reach out. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, let me. What you're seeing on the screen here right now, let me just do this, is I've logged into SAP Analytics Cloud. And in SAP Analytics Cloud, whether it's creating a model that's going to hold your data, whether it's creating a report that's going to allow you to visualize variance between your actuals and your forecasts, whether it's again any element of Just Ask or being able to do risk analysis, anything related to that is all contained within SAP Analytics Cloud. Over on the left here, you'll see a whole series of things, and these are all based upon, whether you have access to see them, of course, but I can see stories, I can look at my models. Now, before I get into the stories and showing you the sort of an end user view, there's one thing I would like to sort of cover. Let me go into this catalog here. And again, this is all within SAP Analytics Cloud. In this catalog, it's really just a collection of stories. And stories really are a collection of visualizations, reports, tables, charts, graphs, whatever you need them to be. And how you set it up and how they look is all independent for you. I'm just going to show you one example that we've built out as a representation of how stories are used. So I'm just going to go into this story, and you'll see a couple of things here. Let me close this down to get major screen. Okay, so High level, this is I'm going to expand this a little bit. This is a dashboard of a whole variety of capabilities and functionality. So in here, I have stories that show how I manage my P&L, how I manage my cash flow, how I integrate with workflow. And one of the things that is very powerful in SAC is that whether you're looking to do financial planning and revenue planning, sales and operations planning, CapEx, OpEx, the modeling functionality and capabilities in SAC are very powerful, and it's really agnostic. You can really do any type of modeling, and we've implemented everything from workforce management to revenue planning to sales and operations planning, project managing, you name it. We've done it with respect to planning and consolidations with SAC. So here is a dashboard, and again, there's a lot of capabilities and functions here. These are, again, just visualizations of the data that I already have in my model. So I can very quickly create a chart here, a graph to show revenue, or I can have a heat map showing my product strategy. What we're seeing here right now really is just that. It is a data model that contains dimensionality that represents my product structure, that represents my organizational structure, that represents my account structure. All of this is really behind the scenes, and I'm just using built-in tools to put the data on the screen in a particular chart. Now, one thing I'll say is that there's a lot of built-in capabilities in SAC. For example, if I were to come over here and look at a particular net income value, built-in capabilities say, I have tools called Smart Insights. Now, this is automatic. You don't need to create or configure this when you're using SAC. It's there ready to use. It basically take the data points or take the visualizations or the data that you want to look at and give you an analysis of it. Automated analytics up front that is there for you to consume. So I can say, let me take a look at the variance of that particular net income value I was looking at. So Smart Insights will go through, it'll look for what are the top contributors. Okay, here's the top contributors to that. Okay, it says, look at that. South America is in the top, in first half of the year, it was a top contributor. Another is the top currency. All of these things are there delivered to you automatically because Smart Insights is built into the analytics capabilities in SAC. Okay. Now, again, I'm not going to go through a lot of the details in all of these different charts. Again, they are just visualizations of the underlying data modeling and data capabilities that are in SAC and BDC and Business Data Cloud. I'm just going to open up an existing, what we'll call story. Again, a story can be looked at as being a collection of pages, so I can have many pages of visualizations. That really depends on how you want to structure your own visualizations and reporting and charting and graphs that you might want yourself. But I'm just going to go into the P&L overview just because it's just a sort of a fairly common thing that everybody will understand. So at a high level, what you're seeing here is a fairly standard P&L sheet. Now, I've got some versions here. I've got my actuals for 2025. I've got my forecast for 2025. And I've got my strategic plan that might be 5 years, 7 years, 10 years out. So I can host all of these versions. And if there's anything SAC does well, it is version management. These are all built-in capabilities. And I can very quickly say, I want my own private version that I'm going to work on because I've got what-if analysis to do. Okay. So again, before I get into it anymore, how do I do data entry? I did want to bring up that here, the data integration side can't be, what's the word I'm looking for, underestimated. It is as much focus and design and investment that has gone into it being a cloud solution, being able to do, business intelligence and planning capabilities built in. The integration side of this is very important. And so SAP spent a lot of time creating integration, built-in connectors to connect to many different data sources. Now here, this is some detail that you might not be necessarily interested in, but I'm looking at my model. I can see I have a version dimension, I've got an account dimension, a date dimension, I've got a product dimension, org dimension, just fairly high level representations of a model. But if I wanted to, I could say, well, how do I want to bring data into this model? Okay. Do I want to bring it in from as a batch process job? Do I want to bring it in on a regular real-time basis? Or do I want to connect real-time to S4 or connect real-time to another data source so that I'm not bringing the data in from those sources. I'm just using SAC on top of it as a visualization element that I can do planning and visualization directly against data from other sources. So for example, these are some of the standard data sources. I can bring data in from BPC. I can bring data in and connect to Business ByDesign. I can bring it in from Concur, Fieldglass, HANA, IBP. This a very powerful integration platform exists with SAC, with Datasphere and BDC. And I just wanted to make that point before we get into any more details. Let me go back to my home screen and jump in there again. Where's my catalog? Oh, yeah. So sorry, before I go here, again, this screen is my own personal screen. It shows, what stories or what visualizations did I just have open. It also allows me to have interactive tutorials. So I can, if I wanted to learn how to do something, how do I use Just Ask from an AI perspective? I could jump into this as tutorials. It's all there ready for me. And I can configure this screen exactly how I want to see it. I might want to say, for example, if any revenue value changes in a particular quarter for a particular product, I can put a KPI metric that would show up directly in here. It's only for me. It's just something I'm tracking because I can control exactly what I'm seeing here. Now, again, from an overall perspective, I can also have access to a whole catalog and library of stories. And these are, based upon your user access and what you want to see and what you need to see. So I'm just going to go back into that same file I had open from a P&L perspective. Okay, let me go back into the P&L. Here we go. So again, from a planning and consolidations perspective, this just represents my account structure. I can see that I have product sales, service sales, and they really all roll up to my total sales, of course. I can see here that I can filter, and I said, you know what, I don't want to see all of my product information, or I don't want to see all of my organizational structure in here. I only want to see the data for, let's say, North America, and I only want to see the data for this particular first person product. Okay, so it will filter, and these are great little filtering tools that are very easy to set up and build in. They're just configuration tools that you say, how do I want to visualize the information that I have on the screen? Again, by filtering and looking at specific details. I'm going to go up here again and put everything up so we can see it. Now, one of again, these are all very similar to the dashboard. These are all tools that I've built in, but let's say all you wanted to see was this table. You can build it so all you see is that particular table. Again, very easy to configure and set up, and you'll notice that we also have KPIs in the bottom here as well. Now, one of the first things that you want to understand is, well, I need to create a budget. I need to do data entry. I need to create an input form that my cost centers or my other areas will be able to understand how, to do data entry. So that's also very interesting. I'm not going to show, I'm not going to log out and become an individual cost center, but you could have this as an input form for another cost center, and they could go in and only see their data, and they're going to say, you know what, in Q2, I'm pretending I'm doing a forecast here or a budget. You know what, this particular quarter, Q2, let's say it's 2027, you know what, we believe there's going to be a 10% increase. Where's my percentage there? There it is. So I'm just going to say 10% increase, and you'll see automatically it updated my service sales. And because my service sales increased, of course, my total sales went up, which means my gross margin changed, which means my operating income changed. So it's a very hierarchical structure in terms of, but you can go ahead and enter data in at any particular point. It's a very top down and bottom up process. You can enter data in at any particular time. And of course, I also have the ability to say, I'm going to roll back. I don't like what I did there, but I can go back in history. I can even go back and say, several moves ago, I did something. I'm going to go back to that level. So it's very, very easy to use and manage in terms of that. Other things that are in here, of course, is that not only can I just do directly against the cell, I could say, oh, you know what? In this particular quarter here, I want to do data entry, but I want to do it by something called distribution. So basically, I can say, I want to use a particular style. So I'll just do distribute value, and it comes up with an automatic planning panel that says, well, how do you want to distribute the data? Do you want to distribute it to the account members at the same level, one level below? Do you want to do data inputs directly? Do you want to use weights? All of these are built-in tools and functionality there. Most of the implementation comes from really setting up the model and setting up the data and linking to the integration, tools that you want to bring data in. And then, of course, setting up the reports and structure. But once that's there, all of these tools are there built in, exactly ready to go. So that's a little bit about a P&L structure here. Now, I'm talking about P&L or doing data entry against my, my P&L. But I also can go, you know what? Let me go ahead and take a look at how my workflow. Let me go back to my workflow. Where's my workflow? Or sorry, not workflow, workforce. Okay, I can't find my workforce there for 1 second. Hold on. I'm just going to leave that and go back in. Go back into the story, go to my dashboard, and I'm going to open up workflow. And again, as I said, it's very agnostic in terms of the types of planning or the, so on. I was showing a P&L here, but I can also go directly to my workforce. So I could say, okay, I have workforce needs, workforce requirements. And here you'll see a different, different set of visualizations with a different account structure. I'm not necessarily looking at a whole revenue account structure. Here, I'm looking at a workforce planning account structure. And here I can see, oh, okay, I've got hires, I've got terminations, I'm going to have some level of churn, I've got closing differences. And I can go ahead and say, okay, in this particular quarter, we know that we're going to have some issue with the number of people in a particular role in a particular area, right? So I can just go ahead and update that. And very similar to doing revenue input in my P&L, this is updating my workforce. And now the great thing is because this is all within SAC, I can automatically update my revenue based upon costs because I went ahead here and updated my workforce planning model. So all of these models really can be created and structured. And that's one thing that we've seen as we've worked with customers to do implementations. They've perhaps started out with workforce planning, or they started out with financial revenue planning. And then they later on said, you know what, I now need to do workforce. I now need to do something else. And the ability to, expand across other departments or planning needs is a great way. We've seen a lot of customers engage and do more and more with SAP Analytics Cloud. Now, a little bit about workforce. Well, let's go back to talk about something called drivers. Now, a lot of people will not necessarily go, my total income is based upon what values I'm entering. It could very well be that your revenue is generated by drivers. Perhaps you have, we work with customers who have like CPG customers whose revenue is dependent upon the cost of raw materials. So whatever those raw materials are, and whatever those raw materials are coming from in terms of your supply chain. So the supply chain is bringing values in. I can automatically look at that and say, okay, based upon the cost of my supply chain data that's coming in from another source, I know that my revenue is going to be affected because all of this adds up and they're more expensive. So here, for example, I've got drivers. I've got inflation drivers. I can change the drivers per quarter to say inflation is going to be a certain value, and that's going to affect the revenue in this particular quarter. Again, very, very easy to implement and set up. Great capabilities to drive any sort of driver-based planning that you want. And we've worked with automotive customers, CPG customers, again, others that do a lot of driver-based planning. So that is also within the total scope of what SAP Analytics Cloud and Business Data Cloud can support. Okay, where do I want to go next? Let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of other things that I think are important, especially from an analytics perspective. I talked about Just Ask. Well, Just Ask really is just a data, is just an AI tool, AI agent, that's there to allow anybody who wants to do analysis to generate a visualization or generate some analytics very quickly without having to go into a story generation mode. This is automatic. All I'm doing here is saying, okay, I'm going to select my model that I want to do some analysis on. Hold on a sec. Yeah. And what do I want to ask? Oh, I want to see net income by product. Oh, sorry, by organization. And I want to take a look at Europe. Okay, great. I'm just going to hit enter. It's essentially a natural query language that anybody can use to deliver a visualization. So it basically says, okay, here's your cost for Europe, or net income based upon what I'm looking at. Well, what if I want to say, oh, that's great, but I want to look at my net income by product. Okay, so look at it by product. So the Just Ask AI capabilities basically says, okay, you just select the information that you need, and it will automatically then start generating your charts and visualizations that you need. Well, perhaps I don't like this particular chart. Let me see. What can I do here? Let me take a look at using, let's see, a table. I can go ahead and do a table structure. So I can go ahead and, again, very easy to use. And this is not anything you need to configure. This is just out of the box analytics capabilities that are already there. Okay. So again, just a little bit about Just Ask. Let me just exit that there. So again, all of these functionalities and capabilities are built in. One of the things that I will suggest that's very powerful, and this is what happens a lot when you're looking at what if analysis. There's always the need to say, I'd like to look at my budget, but I want to start to play around with, because I'm getting input from the market, I'm getting input from my sales organization that there could be challenges or opportunities in a particular quarter or whatever. Well, using this, I can very quickly, sorry, I drilled into that. My apologies. I can very quickly say, okay, that's great. But now I want to, I'm going to create a new version, right? So you can do that very quickly and automatically create a version. And then that version is just for you. You're working on that individual version yourself, okay? Now, again, perhaps you want to say, oh, you know what? I love this data, but you know what? Let me take a look. I really want to know the details behind this product sales number. So again, I'll just click and I'll say, where is my value here? Why can't I see that right now? Go to link, and I'm going to drill into S4. Now, I don't have an S4 system connected here, but if I did, it would bring up S4. It would have an automatic link to these trails, and then to this particular sales number, and it would show me all the details related to that particular value. So again, very powerful. I can drill into data sources and data from different systems, and really navigate around my entire end-to-end EPM system. So whether that's your S4, whether that's SAC, whether it's something else, whether it's SuccessFactors, Concur, you name it, I can drill into it and I can look at it all within the same system. In
Jason,
fact,
sorry to
go
interrupt,
ahead.
Jason, just a quick 15-minute time check.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so another thing, let's say that I have a version, and that's great, and I now want to share that version. One of the things that I always found, and I worked in an organization at one point where I was part of the planning organization, and I had to do entry. I was using Excel at the time, and I can tell you there's a lot of cutting and pasting and putting disjointed and disconnected spreadsheets into emails, and then sending those emails out, and then trying to get feedback and trying to collaborate with everybody on the actual processes and the numbers. Well, here I can do all of that directly in the system, right? So here's a collaboration panel. I can say, you know what? I'm looking at this story. Let me invite, let's see, who's okay. Who am I working with here? I'm sure Dan won't mind if I send him a note. Okay. So I've invited Dan to a discussion here in the system. I'm not sending an email. And what do I want to do? Well, I can link this story automatically and say, Dan, can you take a look at this story? Or I could link to an attachment. I might want to say, you know what, I'm looking at this number, but I'm also looking at this transaction from S4. Something seems off. Whatever that is, you can attach Word documents, PDF, whatever it might be, to go ahead and drill into your information. Now, I can also, you see here, something called general task or new general task. I can set up tasks. There's a whole workflow environment involved in here called calendaring. And I'm just going to switch over to it because I think it's an important aspect of it. So I'm just going to leave this particular story. We'll go back into it in a little bit. I'm going to close out this discussion with Dan. He's not responding to me. And in this calendaring capability, I can go ahead and set an entire workflow process. So I can define a complete workflow to say something called budget entry. So I would create a screen like you saw before, where I'm doing data entry. And I would then say, okay, I'm going to create a general task. And that general task is called budget entry. And the budget entry starts at a particular date, it ends at a particular date. And I can then also assign people by organization. So I've worked with customers who are using this calendar entering functionality to, basically automatically send out thousands of input forms to thousands of cost centers who then go ahead and input the data and then send it back. And then I can go ahead and approve and do whatever I need to do. So there's an entire calendaring capability in here that really is again, a very strong part of your entire planning and consolidations requirements. Let's see, where do I have here to go next? Okay, hold on one second. I'm going to go back into my stories here. I'll go back into my Now, again, so we've talked a little bit about the fact that, we have, I can look at my P&L, I can look at my revenue, I can look at driver-based planning. There's a lot of stuff in there around pricing and costing, for example. So this is one area where we've done a lot of work with customers who are bringing information in from supply chains. So again, when you're looking at the overall materials and costs, and you're bringing those materials in, and certainly from a supply chain, you can set up the entire supply chain workflow and automatically have that integrated to SAC from a planning perspective, so that I can do supply chain management and use that information to, make decisions around my, my financial and revenue planning. All built into the system. And again, all the same navigational capabilities are all there. It really depends on how you want to set up your entire structure. Let me go out here to the dashboard again. Also, I could drill into, let's see, one of the things that needs to be understood is that, again, this is all contained within SAC and Business Data Cloud. It has all of those AI capabilities and so on that are there. And it's very integrated so that here, when I open up this particular screen, this shows me I have a cash flow representation. I've got a profit and loss representation. Everything can be done and maintained all within one particular capability here. Now, one thing I'll also represent is that I'm giving you a fairly standard table view. That's just me. If I can't see the data in tables, my brain doesn't work very well. So sometimes charts and other visualizations aren't as easy for me to use, but you saw me on the beginning of the screen. The gray hair should give it away. I'm not fresh out of college by any means. So my brain, I think, has gotten wired to tables and structures as opposed to graphs. But again, any representation you wanted to see of the data can be done in any of those ways. I'm just going to drill in here again to my P&L. I'm just going to go ahead and open up something called a value driver tree. Hold on 1 second. Now, it has been a while since I used this particular story, so I might need to go look for the value driver tree, excuse me. Before we get there, this is something that we developed and implemented at a particular customer site, and it really is, again, related to the workflow. I have all of these different components, so you can define exactly what the process is that you want to use as part of your budgeting and planning and consolidations process. So I can set this up for my users, and I can say, okay, you go in here and you will get your input form, or you go to another area if you want to do product costing. All of these are just other ways that you can visualize and drive into the details. For some reason, I can't find my value driver tree. I apologize. I'll need to go back out and take a look again. But again, the value driver tree really is a visualization tool that allows me to create a visual representation of my hierarchy. Now, one thing we haven't talked about very much is that this is all currency driven. So I'm dealing with, we deal with customers around the globe. We have customers who have 100 countries and 100 currencies potentially in their environment. All of this is currency conversion capability. I can input data in any particular version. I can look at currencies. I can input currency that I'm in for local. I can use my default currencies. All of that is structured and maintained within SAP Analytics Cloud. I've gone through this fairly quickly. The only last thing I'm going to represent and put up front here, so we can get into some questions perhaps, is that everything you've seen here is a web-based browser, cloud solution. Now, we also have the ability to go ahead and use an Excel add-in that's been created. There are customers, I'm probably one of them if I was a customer right now. I just know Excel and I use Excel, but I use it only for data entry. So I can enter data into the model I showed you, into any aspect of that. I can enter data in and use an Excel add-in to go ahead and enter data to do analysis and then publish that back to the model so that it's there as part of the corporate SAP planning model, all there ready to go. Last thing before I go, or before we get into that past the demo, one of the things that has been very powerful, I can't tell their name, but the predictive scenario capabilities is a very strong AI agent within SAP Analytics Cloud. Essentially, I have a variety of different predictive scenario algorithms that I can use to analyze my data. I can use my classification if I want to do, predict membership of categories on a yes/no basis. Or if I want to use a time series forecast, I can say, you know what, I'm looking at my budget over the last 15 or 10 years, whatever data I have, and I want to see whether I should, how I can go ahead and create a new budget based upon the predictive scenario, which is looking at my time in the past and any seasonality that might have occurred. Again, another very powerful out-of-the-box analytics tool that you can use to, again, create budgets, analyze data, and so on. We did have one customer, for example, who was using SAP Analytics Cloud, and they were using I think it was the classification capabilities, and they found out that as a company, there was a particular role in the organization that was very senior, but a lot of the people in that role were retiring out of that role. So they identified that, oh my goodness, we need to start creating some training programs in order to bring some people in. Again, this is what a tool like a predictive scenario functionality and capability can bring to your plate. Other pieces, I mean, when it comes to anything related to performance and monitoring, all there ready to go. There are tools that I could use to automatically bring data from one model to another. I'm not going to get into those specific details. The only thing I'll represent is that the ability to very quickly create a story yourself from an implementation perspective is, to me, one of the greatest capabilities. So if I was to go in here and say, I'm going to create a story, and what story am I going to use? Okay, well, I'm going to create a story here. I've got a gem story. This is just a very simple representation. But if I wanted to, I'll just show you how easy it is to create the story. Again, I don't want to go to a lot of the detail here, but let's say I've got a story here. Yes, thank you. I see that you were a story. Yes, this is the new story format. And I'm going to create a new page. I'm going to create a Canvas page. There's different ways. It's also mobile enabled. I could set up mobile devices, and we have customers who use mobile devices in the field for doing tree management, and they use mobile devices to do data entry. Let's say, what do I want to do? Well, I want to create a table. So all I'll do is I'll just bring my table across here. Okay, there's my table. Now the system doesn't know too much about what I want to put in here yet. So it says, well, what do you want to look at? I want to look at all accounts and calculations. Great. Okay, that's fine. That's one thing. What do I want to look at in terms of currency, or what I want to see? Let's see. I am going to use USD. I'm a company here, and it says, okay, well, there you go. Here's your net income. And here's your, so basically I'm just saying, I want to see my entire account structure based upon the details I'm providing. Now, I could also go ahead then and say, okay, well, I want to look at another dimension. I want to add organization to this. So all of a sudden then it gives me, okay, I've got organization. Now, again, a lot of the visualizations you saw were built out just using this very simple builder panel. So I can use Just Ask as a way to do my analytics. I could go in and use this tool to build out new visualizations. But again, a lot of the visualizations you saw today were built out using this very easy to do drop and drag. We're finding is that in the past, there were often personas that were represented in organizations, and you were an end user and you didn't touch the system other than look at a report. You can still do that, but what we're finding is the ease of use of the solution itself is a lot of those end users are now becoming end user analysts, I guess would be the best way to say it. They can create their own visualizations, they can create their own versions, and it gives them a lot of power to be part of the budgeting and planning lifecycle. So with that, I'm going to stop. I think we're pretty close to the time, Nick, if I'm not incorrect. But happy to answer any questions and talk about next steps. I'll give it back to you for a second there, Nick.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jason. Let me get my screen back up. Okay, there we go. So yeah, thank you, Jason. Very informative demo. Really appreciate all the data terminology you're throwing around, right? But just to level set, I think it's also realistic for smaller customers, especially smaller enterprise systems, to start with a small data set or use case, kind of a pilot, right? Would you agree?
Absolutely. Again, I've tended to work with some larger customers, but I've also worked with customers who, were quite small. They have one model, they were doing one data set. And I've worked with customers who were only using Excel and, very small implementations. So it is very scalable, if there's anything I could say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So as we move towards Q&A, I want to quickly frame what's next for customers who want to explore this further. This typical next step is not a full transformation, but usually a short discovery, or like I was mentioning, a focused pilot on a small set of KPIs and real business questions. The goal is clarity first and then scale only if it makes sense. So feel free to reach out to myself or your account manager here at VistaVu, and we're happy to connect you with more information. Jason mentioned showing you more in the system itself, so happy to connect with you further. So with that said, we have some good questions in the chat, Jason, and just to get us started, we'll start with Robin. And Robin, we can take you off mute as well if you'd like. Just raise your hand, or for other attendees as well, just raise your hand or post them in the chat here. Robin's question is, there's a lot of data coming together. What's best process for validating the accuracy of the numbers?
Oh, data validation. Great question. Every customer we've worked with, as I said, we've started off in the beginning. A lot of the planning challenges we've seen as we work with customers also are data management problems. And those sometimes are unclean data. Now you can certainly with Business Data Cloud do, and we have customers doing it today, doing a lot of transformation of their data based upon, just going in and analyzing it, looking at null values, looking at where they've got, misaligned data. So certainly from a BDC perspective, there's a whole set of tools to allow you to, improve that data set and algorithms and so on that you can use to improve that data set. Data coming in from different data sources, you can, at the same time as you're bringing that data in, you can do what we call the term data wrangling. I'm bringing the data in and I'm analyzing that data and saying, okay, I've got a model here and a structure. The data that's coming in doesn't have some of the master data elements. I can automatically flag and tag and look at those, and I can adjust them, or I can put them to a separate report that I'm going to go ahead and adjust later. So there's a fairly wide range of capabilities around making sure that the data coming in is correct. I'm not sure if that answers your question exactly, but let's see if I get close.
Yeah, we have a few more questions. So Robin, if you have any follow-up, just let us know, post them in the chat, reach out to us. I think it's also important to mention when looking at this, the confidence will build when you've validated the model and the logic up front. And then when you're, consuming this, reusing this, right, the business will start to, trust it further.
Yeah.
All right, so next question from Brian. Does SAC ever update the underlying data?
You can certainly set it up to update data in other data sources. Within itself, if I've got a planning model within SAC, let's say I've got acquired data, it's in SAC from a modeling perspective. Anytime I'm changing that data, the model itself is being updated. Now, if I've aligned my planning and consolidations model in SAC with my S4 account structure, I can automatically say bidirectional, I'm going to send values back to S4. So yes, you can do that, but that really depends upon the workflows or the processes that you might have in your own organization.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Jason. Next, we'll go to Mohammed. I might paraphrase a little bit here, Mohammed. We're using S4 Public for core finance with BTP and SAC, while other systems are non-SAP like CRM, HR, CMMS, and they are not currently synchronized. Due to access limitations, we can extract data, but not fully set up real-time integrations. How can we integrate data from these systems into a single source, such as a data warehouse data platform, and enable SAC for executive level reporting.
Okay. So SAC in itself has a very rich and robust data integration or a series of connectors that it connect into many different data sources. However, those represent having individual connections to many different data sources and then trying to organize that around SAC has some challenges as a best practice. What we're doing more and more is that we are using BDC and Datasphere has it's a data management platform. And not only does it have built connectors to SAP solutions, but it has standard industry access connections, whether it's OData, whether it's other API functions that you bring the data in or connect with zero replication capabilities and bring that data into the data management platform and then synchronize that throughout your entire organization. And a lot of customers are doing that. We have as many customers right now, and this is it's neither a brag nor a whatever, but we have as many customers now that we're working on purely from a data management perspective to look at how Datasphere and BDC and SAC can connect and streamline their data throughout their whole organization. As we do customers, we're working with them specifically on business intelligence, for example. So that whole business data platform, if you want to take a step back, if you want us to get on the line with you at some point, would love to have that conversation with you about what your challenges are and how we believe BDC and Datasphere could support.
All right, thank you, Jason. So the next from Naru, maybe for a customer, or maybe a pain point with our own usage of ByDesign here at VistaVu, with ByDesign, can Analytics Cloud support fully customizable financial reporting like dynamic P&L, cost center reporting, and automated budget versus actual without requiring manual configuration? And can these reports be easily distributed to stakeholders on a scheduled basis?
My glib top answer to that will be yes, we can do that. Now, I also want to use the term configure versus customize. Once we have access to the data, once the integration structure has been established, once we understand the modeling piece, the reporting, the ability to create reports, the ability to schedule when reports are created, real-time access to data, all of that becomes available. Now, you might need to configure how you want a report to look, what chart you want in it, what table, but that configuration is very simple and it's really there as a configurability out of the box.
Okay, thank you. Naru, if any additional clarifications or follow-ups, you know how to get a hold of us. And from Devin, also at VistaVu, when it comes to a 5-year plan, is that typically built and maintained directly in SAC, or does Excel still play a primary role?
Most of the time, it's done entirely within SAC. Now, to be honest, I've done a number of different implementations around, my actuals, my forecast, my budget, and my strategic plan. Some customers will represent, okay, I don't know what my product structure will be in 10 years. So to try to build out a 10-year strategic plan based upon my detailed granular P&L model right now doesn't make sense to me. So they will create a separate model that has a different layer of granularity for the strategic, long-term plan. Now, that's up to them. I've also seen customers do it directly in SAC with using the same model. The only challenge is of course, is just how accurate it is and how, really representation it is of your model and your ecosystem.
Okay, very good. So about 2 minutes left. There's two more questions in the chat. I think we'll take those and we can publish, and not an addendum, but a response to those questions. And so with that, Sonia, do you want to take back over? Oh, it's just the poll. Okay, very good. Well, with that, thank you, Jason, for leading us through. And let me close this down. Want to thank you to the audience for taking time out of your day. Really appreciate you joining us. And you'll receive the recording link, and we'll also send a response to those 2 questions that we weren't able to answer. Thank you again, and have a happy Friday.